why you thought of restoring old properties?
My father was an industrialist. If he said to me, take a factory, I would have been a disaster. So I got a ruin with two friends, put my creative energy to work.
We are very proud about our historical sites, right? But are we as a country taking care of it?
I look at it very differently. They were great civilizations, but when their end came, it came like that. The only civilization that is continuously alive is India. So when we say, कुछ बात है कि हस्ती मिटती नहीं हमारी, it's actually a statement of fact.
How you select your properties? That
Hundreds of people go to our hotels every day, and then they see that this was a ruin and look what it become. They contact us all the time,
you have been with a lot of royalties. Do you think they're still the kind of royal they used to be?
They can't be. They have no purpose in life. They've been made redundant by history. So they've chosen other things to do.
Why a lot of people say that Mr. Tata is a very extraordinary man?
Mr. Tata was a very simple man, and he had good instincts on people.
You've met so many of wealthy people in your life. What is wealth exactly to you?
It serves a purpose, and
So first of all, thank you for being part of Impact Stories.
it's a pleasure.
And I'm very excited because you started as a historian first and then you came into the hotel industry. But I'm very much interested about your childhood, how you started your journey from the scratch.
Every childhood is mysterious because you don't know what is going to happen. So you study something and you become something else. Ratan Tata studied architecture, and then he joined a company because he had the pressure of the family. And I used to tell him that you built a company. So, it's all
This.
Yeah, not destiny. It's actually your willpower, because if you want to be an artist and your parents want you to become a lawyer, then what will you become? You will eventually become an artist. They can force you to become a lawyer. And then halfway you will say, this isn't what I wanted to do. Why am I living my parents' dream? Because you outlive your parents. So this whole thing about what will mummy, papa say is off. You have to do what you want to do. And then your parents will be very proud of you. Whether you're a chef, whether you fly a supersonic jet, whether you run a hotel, doesn't matter. But in your profession, you have to do something which others haven't done. So you leave your mark behind. And there's always, you call me a hotelier. I don't even think of myself as a hotelier. But when Neemrana ran 27 hotels and people say, meet a hotelier, you have to accept it. But I write books, for example. So people introduce me as an author. But I don't see myself as this or that or that. I'm just a human being. I'm having fun and I'm doing very sincerely my act of karma in this or that or that.
So when you got to know that you want to choose history over anything else?
I didn't get to know that at all. I had stood second in India, and everybody that time who was bright used to do economics. So I applied for economics in St. Stephen's College, and they were a bit curt in the interview. If you stood second, you should have the choice to do whatever you want. But they said, are you good at maths? I said, well, I got 100, but it's not my favorite subject at all. I don't know why. They said to me, in which case you should go across the road and try, which meant Hindu college, because, when Shivan sits there, everybody else is down there. So I just didn't like that moment of arrogance. You can be the principal, you can be the dean of St. Stephen, but you can't, talk down to a student. So I said, okay. So it was a short interview. I just got up and left. I went to Hindu college and they said, why'd you come to us? You got such a fantastic result. I said, I want to join. So of course I joined. But then my school principal, who knew me very well, was absolutely astonished that I hadn't got what I wanted. So he wrote a letter to the principal of St. Stephen's to say that in 25 years of his being principal, he'd never written a letter. And not for a boy of my caliber, because, I did everything. And because modern school offered everything, so you could do horse riding and gymnastics and swimming and kathak and everything, and photography and batik. And if you did it with concentration and with passion, and if you're a creative person, you can swim in and out of one thing to the other. So when I went with that letter, they said, you can take it, you can take economics. But by then I thought, why am I dying to do economics? When we left school, when you leave school even, nobody knows what they're going to do next. Somebody saying, ye kar lo, wo kar lo, you should do this, then you'll make money, or you should join the government. So you make wrong choices. So history was really a wrong choice in that sense. By process of it, I said, oh, English, I was very good at. That if I do English, what they say, will you become a teacher? So I can become. Or would you join the foreign service? I could become. All the options are open. I wasn't stupid. But I took the option that was most endearing for me, and which was again just by choice. You meet somebody, you get into something. I just finished college. No, I finished my history in college in my BA. But in 3 years there, 2 years I won the annual literary prize, which was very prestigious, which was for English really. So then I thought that, English is my thing. I know it. I know literature. I've read everybody. So I went to the principal and I said, I'd like to do my MA in English. So he looked at me and said, you think you're in America? You can just shift courses. So I was stuck in history. So I had to do my master's in history. So it was not a choice.
That's all. But then you fell in love with also?
No, I did fall in love with history. It's okay. It's such a tough. I was not interested in the details of history. If Napoleon conquered this much of Europe and Bismarck conquered in the boundary chain, it's of no relevance and no importance for me.
But why?
Why
It's
is it
important.
It's not of any
Part of the history.
It's part of history, but how does it affect my life? If somebody, conquered this place or that place, it's just stories. But what I think, I'm saying this in retrospect, because what you learn is very, what should I say? It happens in an intuitive way. There are 30 students sitting in a class. They all get something else out of the teacher. So it's your own sensitivity, your own upbringing, what your values, you're at home, what your parents have taught you. If money is a thing, then even if you're in a history class, you're thinking of will I become a land mafia, or will I make a building, or whatever, your dreams are. I had no dreams. I still don't have any. I have an open palette, and I respond every day. And I respond from within. Even this podcast, people say all the time, you should do a podcast. You've got a lot to say. Everybody has a story to tell. But because the friend who recommended it is somebody who I relate with, he's a creative person and he spoke highly of you. So, you were already placed there. So here we are. But it may also not have happened if you had come through somebody who's just pushing and saying, "Ek aur podcast kar do," yeah.
Yeah.
So everything is
So that
not destiny. I don't know what the word is.
we are
Destiny, maybe.
we are very proud about our historical sites, right? But are we as a country taking care of it properly? So we always brag about, right? Oh, we have this place, go to Taj Mahal, this thing, but are we taking care of it?
No. Firstly, India is not a country like any other country in the world. All right, we are a continent, almost. We call ourselves a country, but we are a subcontinent for sure. The kind of landmass we have. But you look at Uttar Pradesh, it's bigger than most of the countries in the world, or Madhya Pradesh or Rajasthan. So when we compare country to country, can you compare India with Switzerland?
No.
With Japan? With nothing. So our heritage, if it's 5,000 years old, our structural heritage, even the stupas of the Buddhist time, are really old. And it's not that one part was, totally underdeveloped and one by. So we've got 50 dynasties who rule more than 100 years. That's more than any country can say. So when you say that we don't look after our buildings, I look at it very differently. I think that if you look at history, let's say, the only country that is continuously alive, the only civilization that is continuously alive is India. There's no other civilization that has,
Oldest civilization.
not oldest, continuously alive. It means there's a big difference between oldest, They could have been older civilizations, let's say, but they died, so they're dead. So you look at Greece, the Greeks and the Romans, the Mesopotamians, the Egyptians. So all these were great, and Persian, they were great civilizations, but when their end came, it came like that, it collapsed. India never collapsed. So it's going on and on. So when we say, kuch baat hai ki hasti mitti nahi hamari, it means it's actually a statement of fact, not just a romantic statement.
Which part of the history you like?
I like the great empires, but like what, to know what are the heights that they could have gone to. But what I did learn, what I did learn from history, not the should put details and this king, that king, was actually the flow of time, the consciousness that time moves on and on and on, and all of us rise and fall as individuals, as dynasties, as families, or whatever. So we are not important. I have no, I'm not thinking of myself as an oversized human being that I did this or I did that, because I put myself to the scale of the cosmos, the Brahmand, which is huge, in which even the earth can't be seen. It's a speck. So where can we come into that? So that is one lesson, which is more from geography. And from history, you know that everything that rises falls. So if you keep your head on your shoulders, if a family keeps its head on its shoulders for 3 generations, an empire can be made. Three people, create wealth, create wealth, create wealth, which is very rare. And if 5 people keep their head on their shoulders, a dynasty gets made. So what usually happens, let's say in families, is, if you want to explain it, let's say using a simile of the trinity of the Hindus, that the Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. Okay, so there's one person who creates an extraordinary amount of wealth, and this proportionate to his times. Let's say the Birla family, or there's so many. Let's not name them, but when you make a lot of wealth, it seems a solution to everything, but wealth is not the solution to everything. It's also the beginning of all the problems. People look at it like, na paisa hai. But if let's say you get $100 trillion today, will you be the happiest man or the most frazzled person tomorrow?
Not sure, but maybe.
Not sure, but from examples of history, when people inherit a lot of wealth, something goes wrong, because just the management of that wealth becomes the challenge. So you cannot be the first, you can't be Brahma twice. Once you created something, you can't create it again. So the next person can only be Vishnu, which is to preserve that wealth. And preserving an extraordinary amount of wealth has lots of ups and downs and pressures and tests, which is a huge test. And the third generation, because it's been easy for 2 generations, they go astray. Normally, I'm saying. So which is why I said if 3 generations keep their head. So if you look at the Marwaris, there's some family that made a lot of wealth. The second generation managed. The third ones are, doing all kinds of, competing in vintage cars or country homes or what. They lose that spark to go out and kill in the forest,
Why you thought of restoring old properties, old heritage sites?
No, so I think the thing is that it might sound like a joke actually, but when you don't have money, then you only do that which you can do. So if I had only the money to buy a ruin, I couldn't buy a palace. First, the palaces belonged to royalty, oh yeah, big royals. And they were all on sale at one point because they had to pay taxes and they were told to keep one thing. So the government grabbed them and then many of them sold. But I was a kid when all that was happening. So when I finished college, my creative instincts took me to advertising again just by chance because I finished college and the next day I was playing golf with General Verinder Singh, who was the chairman of J. Walter Thompson or Hindustan Thompson, which is the advertising agency. So he said, what are you going to do, young man? So I said, I don't know. I've just finished college. The results have just come. He said, you're very creative. You should join advertising. I said, okay. So he wrote a letter and I went to see somebody and they said, what's special about you? I said, nothing, but you would try me and see. So I joined them. And in the first week, I did 2 campaigns which sold. So they knew that I was somebody there. No, not more than something. They said, wow, you're so good that I did a campaign for Pan Am and I did for DCM Data Products, for which it's a Shiv Nadar was, he was working there for the DCM people. And they saw the spark and they said, we double your salary in 2 months. And after 2 months, they doubled my salary one more time. They said, because you're so good. So that general, who knew my family and knew me because I was from the school, which his family had started, the modern school. So I got the right place to start. And my father was an industrialist and he was making heavy machinery and, precision machine tools and so on, which was not my aptitude. So if he said to me, please take a factory, I would have been a disaster to run the factory of which I have no interest. I'm not interested in all that. So then I made a niche for myself. So history was my education, and the lesson was that everything that goes up goes down. And then I had a pocket which was empty, so I got a ruin with 2 friends and put my creative energy to work. And that was Neemrana. Before Neemrana, I did a small private project for myself. I knew that I could do it. And so I didn't use architects and consultants and all this who eat up all the money of a project. So, if you do your plumbing, your carpentry, your gardening, your structure, everything yourself, because, we have an education, and education in the modern school is very well rounded.
So these days people go for leisure activities to Neemrana Fort, right? But what is the actual history behind it?
The history behind Neemrana is that it was built by the descendants of Prithvi Raj Chauhan, who died in battle in 1192. And then suddenly there was a gap, and then the Islamic, rule starts. So, his descendants built it because Neemrana dates back to 1467. So it was with a few generations lived here and there and tried to live here and everywhere. They made a fort and somebody hunted them out. They went. So Neemrana is the 3rd capital of the descendants of Prithvi Raj Chauhan. So there was a Raja sitting there and he had no money and he was a nice man. And he said, help me to sell it and I'll give you a commission. So I said, who will buy it? Everybody said, are we crazy? Who's going to buy a khandar? So then I thought, why don't I buy it? So I got 2 friends and we bought it. So, a direction is shown to you, to everybody. Okay, many doors and windows open. So if you see an open door as a shut door, nobody can help you. People go say, "Yahan to bahut hoga." So if you're scared of ghosts, then you can't even enter a ruin. So forget it. How are you going to do it? So when Neemrana is done, it's become so splendid and it's got, 90 rooms and there are conferences and weddings and people go there. 400 people eat lunch there. So that whole memory is layered over. I mean, there are pictures to remind people and they must be, they say, who's this crazy person who had this vision to do this? But I don't think of myself as crazy because my family had come from Lahore. So we had no past, I was slick cut. So I was not creating my past, but then I got involved in the bigger purpose of India's past. So, it's beyond yourself. So I don't say if I die, what will happen to Neemrana, what will happen to my children? I don't think like that. You have to professionalize it, and there are brilliant people in the family who will run it. If then an income books, they can sell it, but at least the work is done, At least when you restored a huge fort which nobody had thought would happen, I, I think life has been extended by 500 years. So in 500 years, many things will happen.
How you select your properties that now, this is Neemrana, now I want to move to the second one.
No, so now Neemrana had a footprint all over India. We did, we actually restored 30 some properties, but 27 of them became hotels. Okay, so they are, in Tamil Nadu, in Kerala, in Madhya Pradesh, in Maharashtra, everywhere. So so many hundreds of people go to our hotels every day, and then they see that this was a ruin and look what it's become. So they contact us all the time. I have a fort, I have a Haveli. My grandfather had left a wonderful house by the river, which we can't look after it. So for us, it's like not one more, one more, one more. It happens every month. We get 8, 10 offers. So we don't have to go hunting there.
Is it the history behind it you go for, or is it just like the structure?
No, we're not. What do you suppose you say that the richest man lived here and now there's one stump left there? That's not. No, we are looking at things like when you reach a place, say wow, that's with some sense of arrival, some beauty in the architecture. History is always there. Even if I went to your village and looked at your ancestral home, it has to have a history. So it's how you enhance a history. You don't cook it up. You don't have to make stories which are not there because, history itself is very interesting.
How you got the Tijara one?
No, so that happened through the government because now the governments, we've been telling governments you can't do it, let other people do it. So then they started to tender it. It is largely because of the Neemrana effort. So we went to the Haryana government and they got them to do something. And we went to the Punjab government, to the Rajasthan government. So now the UP and Madhya Pradesh governments have offered many properties. So we are going to do now, we started to do the summer fort of Rani Jhansi, which is a kind of national icon. And then one in Madhya Pradesh, which is called Chanderi, where those extraordinary Chanderi saris are made. You can do, it has to be a movement. It can't just be, Neemrana doing this, Neemrana's done many. But we like to do things well. The risk is that now it's become fashionable to get a fort and get a palace. And people who have more money than taste can ruin history. So the governments, when they give it out, have to be careful. If you get a man who's just got so much money, he wants to plaster the whole place with Italian marble and make jacuzzis and naked women with fountains and all, then he should be shot dead. He cannot tamper and ruin history. So now there are courses in restoration. I think there's a consciousness of history.
But is there any property you're disappointed with? You see, not yours, but somebody else you see that they got.
Why should we talk about other people's properties? There are many, people ruin them. I was recently in Gujarat, somebody showed me what an IAS officer had done. It was a fabulous property. He's made it look like a cheap farmhouse. So that was but he shouldn't be allowed to do that. Well, there have to be norms that, how much you can touch a plate. And also, these are unlisted buildings we are talking about. We're talking about unlisted buildings. So that's also needs to be clarified. There are 3 kinds of buildings in India. The Archaeological Survey of India, it looks after, Taj Mahal, Ajanta, Ellora, whatever, Hawa Mahal also, I think. And then there are state lists which look after state thing. I think Hawa Mahal may be looked after by the Rajasthan government. So there are a lot of those. But there are no funds for these. Your earlier question that is India managed to look after them? They cannot because it's not the priority. So even today, if you say that 40% of children in India have malnutrition, and you are the Prime Minister of India, would you first feed the children or would you repair a ruin? There's no doubt on what the answer is. People come first. The citizen comes first. But it doesn't mean that because you spend 50 years looking after the citizen and the ruins will fall to further to ruin. Because the thing is that for India, which is such a complex civilizational, cultural, diverse place, that we have to have parallel priorities. It's like saying you're very hungry, so you're only busy eating or plowing or making things in the field, but you forgot to wear clothes. You also have to wear clothes. You also have to look after your family. You have to do so. All of us have many responsibilities. The nation has to, in a very responsible way, say, you know, roti, kapra on makan, all that has to happen. Okay, roads, infrastructure, transport. So it's got so many things that if the heritage was not looked after, it cannot be the fault of the government, but it can be the fault of government policies. Because if you can't do it, suppose you can't do something, okay, and you say, I can't do it, but I won't let you do it. That means you've got an ego problem, or you're running the colonial government from the past, because colonials owned India and we were their slaves. But today, the government elect are servants of the people. So if the people and the country's heritage is being lost and you don't have the funds to do it, it only makes sense to say, put it, to tender and find people who are competent and who will do a much better job than the government could ever do.
What is there in your book, Jaipur, the Last Destination? I really like the title.
No, it was the last destination of the Kachavahas because they trace their descent from Kannauj to Amer, and then Jaipur was founded when Sawai Jai Singh II came out in the plains, because that time there was security. It was Mughals had disappeared. So 1747 is when the Marathas are also sort of marauding the place, looting, but the Rajputs are strong, so they can make their cities in the plains without huge fortifications. Even though Jaipur was also fortified, it had 7 doors, but not fortifications like uh, Nahargarh Fort or Jaigarh Fort, because they didn't have to fight those wars. And the British came, so then came even more peace and security at the cost of our liberty and freedom. But no, the book has many things, If you
But still, I want to, yeah, you can dig down deeper into the book.
no, I uh, didn't know Jaipur till maybe till I was 22 or something. I'd never been there. I went there with an uncle of mine who was a great collector of precious stones. So he took me to buy rubies, emeralds, diamonds, whatever he was buying. And I was a kid. I think I was in college then, yes. But I saw it. I was impressed by it. No, and I only had one or two friends. And then many more friends from Jaipur who all came to study in Delhi University. They used to use my house as their house because I had a big house. So when I went to Jaipur, I had like 30 people saying, you have to stay with me, I have to stay with me, because they'd all stayed with me. So they were reciprocating their hospitality, or I would go for a meal at least. So if one of them was the biggest jeweler, the Dullabjis, who was a good friend. There was a friend whose father was in the income tax. So they had, I think, raided that fort in the emergency, and there was some gold and all. So nobody was allowed there. But because I was staying at his house, and his father was the big boss, I could go and visit it. So I got into pockets where they themselves don't go. Like I live in Delhi. I don't go to the little nooks and corners of Delhi. I have no reason to go. But if you come and you say, I have an aunt who lives in Billi Mara in Gully number 36, I'll go with you and I say, wow, this is in my city. I didn't know this. So when my book came out, all my Jaipur friends were the first to be astonished. She said, you, how do you know this? Because they only told me, everybody told me different aspects of it. And then my curiosity took me even further. So then I did a book. It's an autobiography it's a biography of a city, 900 years of Jaipur. And President Shankar Dayal Sharma, he created a national award. It was like it came out 30 years ago. Even if you look at it today, it looks so sumptuous. Yeah. It's had 5 editions. And I worked with a publisher who didn't understand how this book could be, but she let me do what I wanted. And she kept saying it wouldn't sell. But in 6 weeks, it was sold. So when you do something fantastic, there's always a market for it. So people ask me, "Oh, you did Neemrana, but what a risk. Suppose nobody had come." I mean, that's stupid. If I went there and I said, wow, when you stand on the ramparts of a fort and see a sunset or eat homemade strawberry ice cream or whatever, you remember it all your life. So if I like it, why won't you like it and why won't others? So we were proven right. So it's actually instinctive. It's not that you send somebody to say, write a report, tick 10 boxes. It fits those, it could tick those boxes and then still be a failure.
You have been with a lot of royalties, right? Royal families you've gone along with. Do you think they're still the kind of royal they used to be?
They can't be. They have no purpose in life. They've been made redundant by history. So they've chosen other things to do.
They still think that they are carrying the
No.
flag, but still.
They are and they're not, because everybody's doing their own thing. But there are some royals who are responsible, who are respected.
Like,
The Maharaja of Jodhpur is one. I don't want to take names because they're all friends. Then when you start taking names, then you make a comparison and you make a qualitative judgment. But everybody knows there are families who are just busy fighting, over palaces or fighting over lands or jewels. When life is much more than that. You should not be writing. When you are part of history or you represent history, then you have to be hyper conscious that you are not writing a black page of your own history. If two brothers are fighting, I think they're allowed to fight when they're over a business. But in history, the instincts are exactly the same. But you have to rise above that and say, I represent, 500 years, 700 years. So I have to be above this. If there's a kid brother, you have to involve him and together carry your heritage. But it's more easily said than done.
why you say this?
No, because people are so insecure. The two brothers have exactly the same genes. Your mother and father are the same. So if one thinks the other is stupid, then he's also stupid. And if one thinks he's very bright, then the other also has a right to be bright. So you're actually fighting with a mirror image of yourself. How can you win? Can you stab yourself in a mirror? So that's what they're doing. So two brothers of the same genes are fighting with each other. They can fight to death, to no advantage for anybody. So hopefully, I mean, one can wish this for business also. That the issues are the same. People want titles. In this case, even if they're redundant, it should be called Maharaja and not be Maharaj Kumar. One issue. Then if you have a big property, its value is more. And all the usual things, like in a business. Why do the richest families in business fight? Are they short of money? Do they have a problem educating their children? Hell no, the ego. I did this, I did that. So I have fortunately seen so much of this around me that I like not to be victim, but you're drawn into it. And if somebody fights with you, when you have no reason to fight, you got to fight back.
Why you talk so highly about Maharaja of Jodhpur Babji? Why you talk so highly about him?
Not
Is it just because you're friends or is this
No,
more to it?
I'm friends with most of the royals of India, but his father died when he was 4 years old. So he became Maharaja at the age of 4. And there were 260 Tikanas or whatever under him. If they were independent, they were not under him, but he's the head of the Rathors. So he was groomed so well by his mother, who first knew there would be court intrigues and palace, so she sent him to England to study. He came back, and that's when we met. He could have just become a very anglicized Maharaja and not been of his people. But he arrives in Jodhpur in a train, and he has a 15-minute drive from the railway station to his palace. So guess how much time it took him to reach from there to the palace? 12 hours.
12 hours.
Because the whole place was mobbed with people. They said, the head of the Maharaja has come. So it struck him that he had a responsibility. he couldn't just, I mean, it's fun. He was a young man. He was, he did whatever young people do, dance in a discotheque, have friends, party, etc. But he built the responsible side of him. And even though the government policies were all against the royals at that time, the privy passes were taken and all that,
Right.
he has been in his lifetime able to um, relook and reshape everything that he inherited, even thing that was squatted in, like the Mehrangarh port has 1 million visitors. It's one of the finest examples of a living, of a fort which is living as a museum. So everything that he's done, so one can admire him for that. There's a Nagaur fort where music festivals happen. The Umaid Bhavan is one of the most, stylish hotels and expensive hotels. So, so he's done all that. So one admires him for that. And on top of it, he's a friend, which is it's nice to have friends who are sensible.
And why you thought of writing the book Umid Bhawan?
No, because somebody had done a book which was not, Umaid Bhavan is a spectacular palace. I'm a visual person. I'm a graphic designer. I'm a writer. So I just thought that a palace which is so wonderful can't have a, shitty little book which doesn't describe it in any way. So I don't know how it happened. Did he ask me? He must have asked me because on my own, why would I say? But I know I must have mentioned to him that what a fantastic thing. And also he was commissioned me. And the Taj Hotel had taken it by then. So it was a combination of that, and it is a very splendid book.
What is there in the book?
So it describes Umaid Bhavan, which was in its time, 30s, the biggest Art Deco palace in the whole world. When bigger palaces have come up now because the Arabs have had all kinds of indiscriminate expenditure for making their homes, but started as a famine relief project to, because the famines in Jodhpur are real famines. When there's no rain, no grain, everybody is dying. So the Maharaja fed them and made them work. So which was okay. It worked for that time. Today you can't say, I'm giving you food and all because there are laws and all, but the Maharajas at that time were the Mai Baap of the people. So it was their responsibility. So those who took it were venerated, those who shied away from it were shunned. So many, sorry, out of 560 or whatever Maharajas they were, I mean, there are many who shaken themselves, woken themselves, but at the top of the list would be a handful. So.
Which is the part of the history of these palaces which you are very interested in?
So these palaces are actually very, very late. Most of them are 19th century palaces and were built in the British time. So not really interested in people, but because there was a compulsion on them. You couldn't fight with the British. You were so small, and so we were slaves. So within that system, those who were able to please them and please their people, it was a delicate balance. If you became a chamcha of the British and just remained that, then no good came. But the British then used them to develop. So if they bought hospitals or bridges and all, you had to be the medium by which this came to the people. So in Jodhpur, for example, there is a water shortage. So they made lakes, they made water systems, because water is life. If you don't have water, you can't live anywhere. So that was a big priority. So it was not one Maharaja, it was many. And Babji today is also, spent a lot of his time on water conservation projects, and he's made a wonderful step well at the foot of the Umaid Bhavan Palace. So all the water, when it rains, should not flow away and just disappear. So if it can be collected, it can be used.
Yeah, it can be used.
There's just one example, but a man's life is composed of many aspects. A husband. He was called Babji, which means what? Father of all the people of Marwar. So that's a huge burden to carry on your head. You can either buckle under the pressure, or you take up the reins and you do it. I believe he's done a good job.
Why you always thought of writing about Tatas?
I didn't write about them. They commissioned me. They saw my books. I didn't write the book on the president for the president of India. When a few of my books had come out, they were, I suppose, very different and outstanding from other books. So people said to me, "You must write a book. You must write a book." So now I said, I can't go on writing books. I've got so much of other things to do. But even by saying half no's and no's, I ended up doing 20 books. So and I said I won't do any more books, but one is just finished yesterday. So I think that only busy people do more things. I think
What are the lesser known facts about Tatas?
there are many actually. Yeah, when my book came out, Ratan Tata said to me, "I better read the book to know something about the Tatas because it's very detailed and researched." So one thing that people don't know is that the founder of the Tata Empire had two children, okay, Dorab Tata and Ratan Tata, okay, and both of them had no children. So the Tata actually came to an end, that. But they had not even a direct relation, because Tata is like a Baradri. So J.R.D. Tata was not directly related to them, but he had set up, or his father had set up, or tried to set up a business of jewelry in Europe and flopped. So they had no money. And so his son, they said, find him a job. And that was J.R.D. Tata, who was a very interesting man. He was very curious and did things, um, like he was one of the first people to fly a plane, as was the grandfather of Maharaja of Jodhpur. And but it needed guts to fly planes. He could fly from Karachi to Europe at landing in fields. I mean, today if somebody tells you take off and there's no airstrip, you will land here, you will land there. I mean, you can hit into rocks, you can do. They had problem, but he was very daring man, and that kind of upbringing he put into industry, and it was a virgin country. You could, nobody was making perfume, nobody was making salt, nobody was making this, nobody was making that. So they got into all the big areas in which India needed them, and because they had a very thorough, a meticulous culture of corporate management and so on, they did so well. People may have overtaken them in wealth, but nobody will overtake them in stature. In what they do. I mean, no company like that. Tata Hotels. You say 90% of our profits go for charity. That's called charity. Rich people today make a charitable hospital. 10 beds are charity, and 90 they make money. With the Tatas, it was the other way around.
Hmm. And how they managed to do this thing? Obviously, everybody need money at the end of the day.
They all need money, but I'm saying the profit. So if you've got 100 rupees, you can spend 10 to make your business grow.
And how they be so selfless? They're doing this selflessly.
It comes out. It comes out because you have to live beyond yourself.
This thought is very difficult to entertain, right?
No, it's not difficult. I mean, my great grandfather was an important man. He was the first Indian sessions judge in British India. So he was an important man, and a house had cars, horses, whatever. It took those days. But when the partition happened, and my parents came and my grandparents came, they just sat in a car, drove, and they came and slept in the Pragati Maidan where there were tents, where the Supreme Court now is.
Well, he was an important man, and then he was on the ground.
But everybody was on. 6 million people were refugee. Refugee means that you're a refugee. And so how does the government feed 6 million people? So my father and his brother, who were, virile young men, they were all India champions of badminton, so they're very fit. They would go out with a gun and shoot wild boar because there was wild. There's all jungle here. And then cut it up in pieces and give it to the tents. So when you started there, fallen here, you know how to rise. But the more difficult thing is that when you're up there and you keep, let's say a royal family, it's difficult for them to grow when they're faced with challenges because they're not used to They're only used to living in a palace. So why you should admire some of the royals more than the others are the ones who were able to work hard, get out of that mold, and understand that the title was given to their ancestors because they did something. It was not an empowerment for just be sitting around. They won an area, they got rid of an enemy, they did all kinds of, and they risked their lives for their people. They grouped their people, they brought them prosperity, all that. So then people worship them because they deserve that. So it's not necessary that politicians who replace the rulers are better, because many of the politicians are a disgraceful example of how people should be. If you go out to say, I will serve you, and then you do exactly the opposite and serve only yourself, then that's a shame. So I think there's always room for, there's a natural cleansing also.
Yes.
Yeah, there is. If you're not efficient, not bright, not hardworking, you fall. Somebody else.
Have you seen this change? Because I feel this change. Then there was a time when people used to be legacy builders. They used, when it comes to business, they wanted to create legacy which can move forward. But now I see all the businessman is there to create wealth. And there's only one thing has come up. A lot of people start calling multi-billionaires and these kind of things have come up.
But that's for nouveau rich people. But still, build a legacy. A legacy, that's what I began by saying.
There's a stature like kind of legacy, right? When you create a
That is when you do something beyond yourself.
Right. You create stature for yourself, right?
Suppose you make a lot of money, okay, and you make the most expensive house in the world. That's not a legacy, that's for yourself. But if you also make hospitals, or you, what I say, structure a company so well that it'll live beyond you. You don't necessarily make it a family-oriented thing. You make it a meritocracy so that the best person in the company has a right to be the chairman. You can hold shares of the company, but you cannot have incompetent people from a family to run it. So the legacy of a company is not just the name of the family, it's the legacy of the company. Look at Larsen Toubro, for example. They were two foreigners, they got together, they did something, and both of them are not there, their families are not there, but there's a legacy that company has. It does, it's got into different fields that it was not even in when they started. That's a complex subject, actually.
And there's one more book, I really like the title, Changing Skylines.
So that is about the Shapoorji Pallonji family, because they're builders. So the buildings show on the skyline. So they built, that book covers all the buildings that they had built. So I was astonished because they asked me to do it, and they actually forced me to do it. They said, because you do such wonderful books, we are going to offer you a lot of money and you must do it. And then they were nice people. So I got along with them and I did the book. And it turned out to be a wonderful book. It's got the history of every building that they built. So it's fun to go to Bombay and know about Taj Mahal Hotel, the Reserve.
Which is the most interesting one? Which is the most interesting part of the book?
Every building is interesting.
But still, there must be.
I hadn't thought of it like that. But there is the building of the Palace of Oman, which they built all the palaces of the Sheikh of Oman, who was a father of Sheikh Qaboos. He went there. The father of Cyrus Mistry, Alanji Mistry, went as a young man, bought a second-hand Volkswagen, rented a second-floor room, and started work there. And then they grew into an 18,000 crore company or whatever. And they had this mishap with the Cyrus Mistry and the whole mishap of the litigation with the Tatas.
Yeah.
These are things that draw blood and shorten the lives of people and also taint companies. One should avoid it, but you can't. I went to meet Mr. Tata not shortly before he passed away, and he was shuffling his feet and walking. He was not well. He was bent and came and he almost sat off the chairs. Then he was not happy that I was seeing him. He said, look what's happened to me. So I said, but I suppose we all have to grow old. What would I say to make him feel better? He said, no, it's not that. It's the litigation. The litigation is something that you can and cannot avoid, you know.
Hmm. Why a lot of people say that Mr. Tata is a very extraordinary man? But if you have met him, there must be some reason.
He was in that selfless. Why do people say Mr. Modi is an extraordinary man? Equal amount of people are jealous that he is who he is. They want to shoot him down. Mr. Tata was a very simple man, and he had good instincts on people. When you beat people, you need to be a good judge of people to be a leader. So when they chose me to do the book, I said to them, I'm not going to do the book. I don't do books on industrial houses, even though I come from a family like that. Don't have the time. But they said, no, just come. Just come. We want to meet you. So everybody said to me, but Mr. Tata is calling you. Why aren't you going? So they sent me a ticket. I always buy my own ticket, usually. So I went and I met them. And it turned out to be a very extraordinary meeting in which I told them that I was not going to do the book. But they were even more impressed and they said, no, you have to do the book. Because I said, no, I'll do 2 pages of the book because I have a vision of how it should be. And I said it should be a book on India. Okay. No. So what happened was I said to them, there are other industrial houses who've done books. Have you seen them? There's one. So one of them, many people around a big table. So they said, yeah, I have the book on the Birlas. And one said, I have the book on the Bajaj. And so because they said, who will they send it to except other people of their stature? So I just said to them, have you read them? And there was big drops, which means that, if I produce a big fat book on my family and send it to you, will you read it? Why should you read it? You should have some, unless you're marrying into my family or something, there has to be a motivation. So I said that I see you because I come from the outside. So I had the advantage of seeing them like I see you, like you can't see yourself. You know what I mean? So I said to them that, I have a vision of how I want the book should be. I said the book should be on India, and within the India story is your story because you made the first steel thing, you made the first locomotive, you made the first this, you made the first tea thing, the Lakme, the perfume. So there's so many things. You are the pioneers of this, that. So and I had it in my head. So I did. I think 1932. I did the book moves year by year. This is 1932 India, 1932 Tata. So you know what's happening in India and what's happening in Tata. So it become like an encyclopedia, which is why Mr. Ratan Tata wrote to say that it is considered um, the most extraordinary corporate book in the whole world because there is no other company like this. Suppose you have to write a book about XYZ and the Tatas. How can that book be extraordinary when they've done nothing of that stature? And how can that book be so extraordinary in a little country somewhere in the world? Because I'd made the book India and Tatas. India is, so great and the Tatas are so great. So when you put the two grades together and you show how 20 years before the whole world had come to accept 8 hours for, industrial labor should work 8 hours. The first company to do it was the Tatas. And they were 20 years ahead of America. And we think that they are progressive and we are retrogressive. So you learn so many things, When Gaurav Tata's wife died, she had one of the big diamonds of the world. And they put it to auction, sold it, and made the Tata a cancer hospital. Is it? Those are things, that's what makes people great. Who's interested? If you were the richest man and, called me and showed off your wealth, who's interested?
Do you got a chance to interact with them on a very personal note?
No, you're writing about them, they have to tell you their story. And he was a wonderful man. He said, when this, I wrote about somebody who had was caught in corruption in their finance department and he committed suicide. So I wrote about him and somebody said to me, no, don't tell, it's a negative story. So I said, no, it's not actually. It's a wonderful story because it says that the ethos of the Tatas is so high that if you do something which is wrong, you You can only do what the Japanese do, harakiri, kill yourself because you can't face the world. Is that a bad story or a good story? So Mr. Tata said, Aman is absolutely right. And then he said to them, it's his book. I trust him. Let him do what he wants. So when he empowers you that much, when we met very briefly, then we got to know each other better. Then he realized that I represented the Tatas and I had taken the role very seriously. So it became the best corporate book in the world. Yeah.
What are the other things which surprised you the most when you were writing this book, when you got to know about them?
Well, there are many things, the book has got 3.5 lakh.
See, because I'm asking this, because I've been part of Tata's because I worked for them. So I'm very.
Where would you work?
I used to work for TCS, Tata Consultancies. So I'm very much interested about him also.
No, this is not one story, but there was a certain amount of modesty. I would also say kind of unconsciousness of who they were. So when I said, and I asked all the questions because I come from the outside. So I said, how many companies do you have? They didn't even know. So they had to ask Tata Sons and all this. And yeah, they didn't have a list. They really didn't have a list. So I said, and then I think then the list came and it was 95. So I said, wow. But it's 100 years. So I said, well, lovely. If you had 5 more companies and we'd say 100 companies at 100 years. So then they went back and looked and they said, yeah, we've actually we're registering this company and this one has just been founded and that has been founded. So feel such a big corporation all over India. So it actually became 100 companies for 100 years. So it was fun doing that book. And then they took me very seriously because I was interested in promoting them as who they are. And when the book came out, that was very interesting actually. It was printed in Singapore because it has some great falls and had some complication. They called me, Dr. Irani, who was the chairman of Tata Steel, called me and on that phone, I think, yes. And he said, he used to call me Mr. Aman Nath. I said, you can call me Aman, but he would say Mr. Aman Nath. So he said, the book has come. Mr. Aman Nath, what have you done? So I said, what have I done? Because I hadn't seen the book. I said, maybe the cover is printed upside down. Maybe I've made some big blunder because it's such a big book. So he said, I said, I haven't seen it. So he said, no, I meant to say, what have you made of us? It's such a splendid book. So I was quite relieved that I hadn't made a mess of the book. So he said, we just had a board meeting and we all stood in silence to admire what you have created for us. So I said, that's nice of you, thank you. But maybe you didn't know who you are. You should know because, that is true modesty. It may be foolhardy to imagine that you do all this, but you are not aware that it's me, as happens in many people today. So humility is a very important component of growth, of leadership, of charity. So we have in India we have so many examples of it. You're sitting next to the Khane Khana's tomb in Nizamuddin here, and Khane Khana was a great scholar. He translated the Ramayana into Farsi, and he was a contemporary of Tulsidas, who lived in Benares. So, and they used to exchange, and they must have met or they must have heard of each other. I don't know. So I don't know how they sent letters, but they did send letters to each other. So Tulsidas wrote a couplet to Abdur Rahim Khane Khana, who was one of the Navratans of the Mughals. I don't remember that actually, but it's worth. If you can find it, you should put it in your program. But the answer of Abdur Rahim Khane Khana was so beautiful, is what I'm talking about, the Tatas. He says, so Tulsidas writes to him that I've heard of your philanthropy, that you are so charitable and so extraordinary, and to what greatness, where does this greatness come from, or something he says. So Khane Khana writes back, he says, Din har koi aur hai, devat hai din rain. The giver is somebody else. He gives day and night. log bhram mujh par kare, tate niche nain. So people think I am giving that money, but he's coming from somewhere else. So I look down when I give money. He said, tate niche nain. So when you're giving in charity, firstly, the source of the charity should not be known. If there are 100 hungry children and you go out there and throw food, tu bhi khale, tu bhi khale, that's battamezi. So that they should all be fed and nobody should know. They should see somebody sent the food to us. That is charity. That's what he said. That's what Khali Khana said.
But today's world, people record when they do some charity because just to get more promotions.
No, but that's not charity. No, when the source of charity, when you get a check which is 6 feet big and blow it up and give it to the prime minister on a stage, is that charity? That's self promotion. I am giving. The ego comes before the charity. That is not true charity.
Hmm. What do you call it yourself? Are you an atheist?
I'm a totally atheist.
But why?
Because I think that if you were God, you do a better job. I think all the gods should be sacked. They've done such a rotten job. How did COVID happen? All the gods had a conference in the sky and said, let's screw everybody who worships us.
But you still believe in karma?
No, karma is to do with yourself. But no, karma is not somebody else is controlling it. Karma is in your hand. But of course, if you die suddenly, that's another matter. But if you keep saying my karma is not good and therefore I'm doing nothing, or my karma is great, I'm doing nothing, it doesn't work like that. You have to shape your destiny. Some things, as I said, a teacher teaches 50 students or 30 students in a class. Somebody gets 100%, somebody gets 150% out of that teacher. Somebody says the teacher is a fool because they're a fool.
If somebody is given less, somebody is given more. Who decide these things? We say Almighty deciding a lot of things.
It's not Almighty.
But somebody must be there who's deciding for us, right?
Nobody who decides what is physics and chemistry. Who is deciding when you put hydrochloric acid in something? Who decides? It's all physics and chemistry. What is it? It's luck. It's if you're born in this house or that house, you can be born with a silver spoon, golden spoon. But that is only the beginning of the story. There is one quotation which I believe strongly in. It says, destiny has only two ways to ruin you. Either by denying you what you want or by giving it to you. So if everything you want you got, you're ruined. That's what I was telling you earlier. And if everything you want you don't get any, you're also ruined. So for people who are educated, we have to make a balance between the two. How much do I, use? How much do I give? How much do I create? How much do I, consume? It's not about yourselves. Suppose your watch is for 2 crore rupees. Let's say I have friends who have watches like that. Then you don't wear it under your shirt. And why don't you wear it under? It's only meant to tell you the time, so you can look like this. But if you wear it like this and you sit around like that, then you're a fool, because you want people to know that you've got money. Nobody's interested.
But some people are interested.
You get impressed by that, then
no. But
then you're in the same category.
People are. See,
No, they're not.
We cannot deny that this is.
So that's a whole lot.
Materialistic society is there.
No, that's the lowest level of people who only see Maya. What is Maya? You know what Maya is? Maya is a huge and extraordinary concept from India. It is a concept that nothing belongs to us. So Maya is the illusion of possession. Okay, suppose I love you immensely and say you belong to me. Do you belong to me? You can't belong to me because you're somebody else. I'm somebody else. So if I embrace you and say you're mine, and then a moment will come and I will tire of you and I will find somebody else. So that is Maya. Maya is fleeting and it is the last thing you possess. So if you take the example of a fashionable lady, all right? Fashionable ladies never have enough clothes to wear, as you know. So if she's going out and she says, but nothing to wear. I should go to some boutique and buy myself some expensive dress. Everybody look at me. That's all her little brain thinking, the little thoughts that she's thinking. Because people value you for who you are also. And that first. So if you looked in your wardrobe and if you've got 50 shirts and if you haven't become oversized and you wore your oldest shirt and came to meet me, or you bought a new shirt and came to meet me, you think my appraisal of you will be different? Not at all. I'm not even looking at your um, shirt. I'm looking at you and the energy that you represent actually enters with you in the room. So, and like we've just met today, all right? So we are sharing a conversation which is at many levels and is superficial and very deep. Um, and we are forming opinions, but that is later. But when we met right in the beginning, the energy was right. You recognize that, I recognize, I said, he's a good guy who's walked in and his intention is good. You've not come to do a story on rape or some sensational thing, I will tell you. But we are talking about many things. So they say that the vibration that you give out are the same that you receive. So if you come insecure, angry, and hate me, and you're forced to do a podcast on me, then chances are that you will be projecting those vibrations when you enter. And I will also say, not a good guy. No, why he's come? What does he want from me? So none of those thoughts came between us because you appeared in transparency and innocence, and I opened the same page. So we are talking like we went to school together.
Despite being the atheist, you thought of writing this book called Pushkar.
Yes, because I'm interested. You see, when you say that I don't like ice cream, you should have tasted it at least. Huh? You can't say that I don't like ice cream. I've never had it. Hello, poor you. I have friends who say, "Oh, no, no, mangoes are horrible. I don't like mangoes. I had one when I was 4 years old. Now it's idiotic, and there are 200 kinds of mangoes. So just because you want to be snobbish and say I don't like mangoes, it's your loss eventually. So the thing is that when you say that you don't believe in God, you should have read. So, the religions, you should have read the major religions or about them and seen how they behave, how historically, w- what they've been up to. And then I find them all, wanting in a sense. So I say to people who are surprised, as are you, that I believe in good people because people are also manifestations of whatever the force is. You don't have to invent a story. Every religion makes up a cock and bull story. Yeah. And then you're supposed to believe it. You haven't seen this. So and so walked on water, so and so did this, so and so did that. Hello, I haven't seen it. I wouldn't believe it just because you wrote it down or somebody said in the book this. Who had the power to write something in a book and everybody had to follow thereafter? And then only those people of that sect follow it, and then another sect follow this, another. So when Christianity comes to India, what do they come and say? That we are a pagan religion, we have 84 million gods, we're this, that, and the other. We believe in rebirth, and there's only one God, and that is our God. Okay, so they've got everything wrong. So in Kerala today, there are 47 kinds of Christians. So how is that different from Hinduism? So in 5,000 years, they'll also become 84 lakh if they have to. So when you say something and you represent the same, they say they don't believe in afterbirth. So when they say in the apocalypse, everybody will rise from the grave. Well, how will they rise? They'll be skeletons or they'll be human beings, they'll rise as proper human beings. So that's not rebirth. What is it? If you're dead in a grave and you're reborn, then you're reborn. So when Hindus believe also that's also this hocus pocus. We have no proof of it.
Yeah, there's many layers to it. Yeah,
So understand to it, the genetics to it. So suppose you say, oh, my child is born and his hands are just like the grandfather. That's the genes. It's got nothing to do with anything else. If in 7 generations, if somebody has blue eyes, you can have blue eyes. So now that we know science, Why do we get into all these things?
Because sometimes science also don't have all the answers.
No, they don't. But then hocus pocus is not the answer to science, you know. You have to have an answer which is, equally. So now people who believe in prayer are saying, you get podcast, I mean, not podcasts, you get forwards to say that, people who pray heal better. It's fine because they calm their mind, but it doesn't mean that there's a God. So if I've started to say that, okay, if I make you God, will you make widows? Obviously not. Will you make orphans? Will you have wars? Will you have earthquakes? Will you have people dying of cancer? That is a God. And you give all the power to somebody and then they live up to here. So if the God's performance is what we are seeing around us, what's happening in Ukraine, what's happening in Gaza, where are their gods? Where is the God or their God? There's nobody, we are just back to animals with our same instincts, egos, insecurity, wealth, conversion, different religion. That's stupidity. And there's no God to control this. Otherwise, even the gods could have a conference and say all these fools.
But these things are created by human beings, right? Not the God.
So gods are also created by human beings, is what I'm telling
They
you.
have created the human beings, not the whatever they do in their own life.
Gods are not. What is the proof that God?
Yeah, obviously, I mean, this is very sophisticated.
No, I'm saying that. So in every place, a different God is made it. In Buddha made the Japanese. No, that doesn't hold to any reason. I'm saying human beings have made the gods from their own little brain. So let's say you build the Brihadeshwara temple, which is 700 feet high. It's the most magnificent, I mean, you could praise it to everything. The sun's rays comes at this time, that time. All right, fine. But who are you trying to fit into it? Shiva. Okay. And what is the size of Shiva? Shiva is the concept, the cosmos.
Is a cosmos, yeah, is
So
bigger than.
can you take the whole cosmos and put it? So it's like saying that I get a matchbox and I say, I made a house for you. I'm going to put you in this. I mean, if there is a God, God should be laughing and saying, look at your myopia, you think I'm this size? You have to look at, you can't just take a humbug that people send out to you and believe it, You have to question it, saying, does this stand to reason? Does that stand to reason? And when you study all the religions, it doesn't stand to reason. Hinduism, the greatness is that there are no, I mean, of course, people make rules and do this, and Shiv Puran says if you worship Vishnu, you will go to hell, and the other way around. But that's the Puranas, and that's the myopia of men who are following that thing and want to promote their brand. But if you look at the greatness of a religion, or let's say the Rig Veda and the Upanishads, there are really wise things. They're talking about a community, a world community. They're saying a guest is more important than you are. So if you have one roti in the house, you will give it to the guest. That's not. It's even today. It's practiced in a village. You can go to a poor house. That is a religion. And religion is, don't like the word religion, but that is an education which is a value system which comes through your generations of this. It's all going now. Now we're becoming exactly like the West because we're aping the West.
So what is there in the book in Pushkar?
No, it's just the story of Brahma.
And what is the exact story? Because there are a lot many stories are there.
There is no exact story. As I said, these are all cock and bull stories. They are made by men. So if somebody writes a book, doesn't mean that it is. So um, there's a Big Bang theory where they say about so we didn't understand that. So they made up a story. So then, because Brahma was the creator, and because Hinduism is a transactional religion, as I say, you go to God and say, may my son come first, may my daughter get a good husband. That's not prayer, that's asking. Abraham Lincoln said, common people do not pray, they ask. So we are common people. If we go to a temple to ask for things, that's not prayer. Prayer is you have a havan and say, may the whole world be happy, may my neighbor be happy, may you be happy, may there be wealth. That is called prayer. Beyond yourself for other people, not mera ye ho jaye, mera ye ho jaye.
But when you were writing this Pushkar book,
No, I was interested in, as I said, I'm interested in understanding what people.
there must be deeper understanding there. Now, what do you?
No, deeper. It's man-made, stories of this, that, and the other. So if Brahma became important, and the people say this one temple, there are many temples. So just to market Pushkar, this is only one temple in of Brahma in India, and everybody believes it because they don't know.
But that's true. Where are the other? Where is the other one?
Read the book, you'll know there are hundreds of other
But
temples.
still, I want to know from you.
They're in Andhra Pradesh, they're all over India. They were. But then, because they didn't want somebody else to get the credit. What does the opposition do in India? They only want to knock down somebody. Even though India is the only country today where there is no war, we are living our life exactly. We get our petrol, we get our electricity, we are eating, drinking. And what is happening? People are dying of hunger here and war there. So people, we are not in any of those problems. But just because we have everything, let's still shoot down the man who is responsible because we don't like him. And he's trying to run a difficult country, and I'm sure he's got faults. But then, if you create trouble for somebody, spend all your time creating trouble for somebody, what is he going to do? Is he going to work or just say, get the hell out of here, let me work? So everybody gets their agenda then. For 5 years, the Sadhguru said this. I thought it was interesting. He said, when somebody elects somebody for 5 years, then you have to shut up and let that man perform. You can't spend every morning and saying this is wrong, that is wrong, he got up on the wrong side of the bed, he did this, that, because then that man can't work. So in the beginning, our Prime Minister did pay attention to all this, what was happening. Then he said, let it be, in here and in out here. So they can go on. He's still making some progress in whichever direction he wants.
My second last question is when you call yourself atheist, what does that actually mean?
Should look at the dictionary meaning, but it means that I don't believe in God. Agnostic and atheist, the difference between that. But I don't believe that God is the person who's doing all that. I believe nature with the N capital, cosmos with the big C. Those are the creation. It's physics, chemistry. So what happened? When 200 million years ago, a comet collided with the Earth. Okay, it went bang, and we have lava in the center of the Earth. So if it bangs really hard, which it did, so the lava oozed out, and there's gravity, so it can't fly in the air. So it oozed out and covered the planet. A little part was left with the sea. All right. So who was left? The turtles and the crocodiles and some fish and some algae. So from that, life started all over again. So where are we in all this? So it can happen today, it can happen tomorrow. So we are taking ourselves so seriously. But I say both. We should take ourselves seriously because time is the only asset we have. Okay. So if we waste all our days saying any day we can die, that's not an option. So whatever time you've got on planet Earth, you should be creative, productive, generous, kind, to community, share whatever you can. Even employing people, you don't have to go out and give. If you employ 1,000 people, 1,000, kitchens are running because of you. That's not a small thing. But then how much can you eat gold biscuits? You can't eat gold biscuits. You're going to, the wealthier you get, the more complicated is your digestive system, the less you can eat. So then it's a lesson that the food is for other people.
You want to tell me about the Monte Singh Ahluwalia's story, yes?
One day when Montek had just become economic advisor to the Prime Minister, had come from abroad, and Rajiv Gandhi had become Prime Minister. So I took him to my first project, which is before Neemrana, in a village in Haryana. There's a Haveli, and nobody knew who he was. So he came, and I sat on the charpai in the chopal, where there were people smoking hookah, and he was chatting. So they were saying, they also didn't know who exactly I was. I had restored his house, but nobody had visited me here. So they were saying, ये अमन बहुत भला आदमी है, they were saying to him. So he said something. So one old man, He said, no, no, no. Actually, we are illiterate, but it doesn't work like that. He corrected Montek, okay? And he said that when we grow a crop, when we put a seed in the ground, first a bird with the big beak comes and takes out the seed. It eats it, when we plant it. Then when it becomes small, then this happened because he named the birds, because even a little sapling, is very tasty and it's fresh, and so they eat it. And then this happened, that happened, and then the um, blue bulls come at the end, and they run at night and shout with lanterns to make sure that they don't spoil their field. So he said, Saab, what is left at the end of all our effort is for man. It's not the other way around. Because he was talking to them and saying, that how much is yours and how much is this. So they were saying, no, no, no. Nature is bigger than us because we face it every day. So all of the West can't teach that. So the education that today's kids are getting is this education which is more materialistic. They don't understand that, in a village, in a poor house, you still give a roti to a cow, you give something to a dog, because that's nature's plan. You have more than that. Even, when you do kolam outside your house in South India, you would do it with rice powder.
The ants get.
Yeah, so the ants eat it and they don't enter your house, because so they eat it there, they pull and they go away. So there are two reasons to it. It's no three. Aesthetically, it's beautiful. You fill their stomach, so they don't come and ruin your happiness. So there are three reasons. But these are all wonderfully reasoned things. Nobody's interested in that.
You have met so many of wealthy people in your life. What is wealth exactly to you? Is it a part of misery or is it happiness?
It's
gain.
neither. It's neither, actually. It serves a purpose, and used well, it can be used to the advantage of everybody. Used badly, it can be spent on yourself.
How you see happiness? Because I ask this question every time.
Happiness is talking to you. I'm happy. Happiness is being in your elements and not pretending to be somebody else. So when you have pictures of people running in a mustard field or cycling there, what are they getting? That's happiness. Air, sky, freedom. Those are the great happinesses. The burdens are, an unhappy job. Say, oh, when will it be 5 o'clock? I want to go home. I never look in my clock when I'm working. I can work continuously. I do.
Mm. So you're a poet too. I know this thing. So before closing the podcast, I want you to say something which is close to your heart.
No, I don't remember my poems. In fact, I've been writing poetry forever, but I never really published a book. But this December, I am publishing my book of poems. And it'll be 60 years of poetry, because so I've done decades. So, and the book is called Older ? Bolder ? Because my poems have over the years become more explicit and more open, shall I say. So if I knew, I could have given you a poem, but I can send you a poem. You can run it.
But still, any line you feel that this not from your book, but anything you feel this is the beautiful line I would love.
There are hundreds of them. There are hundreds of them. They're not really poetry. They're things I remember. Things. Well, in English, it's better to be in love with the changing seasons than to be hopelessly in love with spring. I like that. And in Urdu, I like मेरी जिंदगी एक मुसलसिल सफ़र है. मेरी ज़िंदगी एक मुसलसिल सफ़र है, जो मंजिल पे पहुँचे तो मंजिल बढ़ा दे. Because life is a continuous journey. You can't say that this milestone is where I want to get to, because when you get there, certainly you want to go further. So you can't say, I want one television, one wife, one job, one child, and I'll be happy. Because when you will have all these, you'll say, maybe I want a second television. Maybe you'll say, I want a second wife. Be careful.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you.